Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and you can see the screen.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Luca. When we planned this, we thought we'd be meeting in Ankara, but of course every cloud has a silver lining. We're not in Ankara. I'm talking to you from dark and rainy Athens, but the silver lining is that more people can attend from various places. I should start by saying that I was born and bred in Rhodes. I'm a true Rhodian, and it was very difficult for me preparing this talk because I didn't know what to leave outside, what to include. So I have decided to focus mainly on frescoes, leaving so much other stuff outside. But that would paint a more complete picture. And from this material, again, I had to make special choices. So I'm not sure how you will find this presentation. It's kind of a bird's eye view of the production, the artistic production of Rhodes during the Hospitallers. Please feel free to make any comments during my talk on the chat. So if there's something you don't understand or something that is not clear, just send it over to me or to Luca, and we can discuss it afterwards. So from appropriation to acculturation, buildings, images, and people in Hospitaller Rhodes, 1309 to 1522. That's what I promised, but we have to begin at the beginning. I assume that most of you know where Rhodes is. I'm not going to put up a map. Some of you may have visited. The rest of you who haven't, just hurry up when this pandemic ends. We'll just to go from the ancient times very, very quickly. In the beginning, there were three major towns or cities on Rhodes: Ialissos, Kamiros, and Lindos. Probably Lindos is the best known one. And then there was one. They decided in 408 to come together and found Rhodes town. This is what Rhodes looks like. This is the island of Simi, the island of Halki, and the island of Tilos. And this is the edge of Turkey, the Dacia Peninsula. Oops. The golden age of Rhodes was in Hellenistic times. The sun, the Apollo, the sun god, was venerated in various forms, in sculpture and in coins. And you may have come across some Rhodian sculpture in museums abroad, like the Nike of Samothrace, known as Nike of Samothrace, probably built in Rhodes, and the Laocoon complex in the Vatican museums. Excuse me. Hellenistic Rhodes was built on a grid, very much like New York, according to the system of Hippodamos, a city planner coming from Miletus. And this was the golden age of Rhodes in BC times. Fast forward, we go to AD with not too much to do. It's the age of invasions. We know that in the 2nd century, with a small Christian community in Rhodes, and we know a name of the bishop. But from the 7th to the 9th century, it was the so-called Dark Ages, main invasions by Persians, Arabs, Seljuks. What we don't know that much of that period, few archaeological remains. We know, however, that and we'll come back to that of course the Hellenistic city had shrunk, and it was concentrated. Please ignore this fortification line, which is the present medieval city, but it's good to see the difference in scale. This was the Byzantine city, and we'll come to it later on with more details. This was the Byzantine city, the fortification of the Byzantine city. And we know that that was the time that the famous Colossus of Rhodes was taken away, supposedly by Arabs. So all the images of the medieval town of Rhodes with Colossus are a fake. Fast forward to what I call the Age of Byzantium, 1082 to 1204. This is the time when Alexios I Komnenos gave the Venetians a free pass to Rome in the Mediterranean, and this would change the face of the Mediterranean, and it would influence Rhodes as well. Again, ignore the fortification, the hospitable fortification. This is the clearer sign of what was there. This is the line of the Byzantine fortress. Probably here in red is the palace of the Grand Master. If you've been, probably there must have been a kind of an acropolis. And this is what the archaeologists have excavated of the Byzantine walls of the city. There were Byzantine churches in town, but of course that period is difficult to follow in town, in Rhodes town, since a lot has been built up. So it's many cases it's out of complete chance that we know what happened in excavations. This is an excavated Byzantine church of the 11th and 12th century near the gate of St. Catherine here. And archaeologists were able to excavate that because this part of the old town was bombed during the Second World War. So there was room to play around. This is the excavation, a small crossing square church with some frescoes, not much left, unfortunately. Another very important excavated site of the Byzantine times, very close to the Byzantine fortress, is the so-called Armenopoulos Chapel, which gave fragments of frescoes and an inscription mentioning the Armenopoulos family connected with Constantinople. So although we don't have much, still Rhodes is part of the Byzantine Empire and with artistic links. Some fragments of the frescoes. And the excavation, we may have a better idea of what the frescoes in Rhodes town would have looked like from remnants in churches from the countryside. This is the monastery of Archangel Michael at Thari, which was built in the 11th century. But this is a late 12th century fresco. Not very high quality, as you can see. But please ignore the building. It had many phases, both architectural and artistic. But this is, we have an idea of what things were looking like. And next door in Lindos, the big port and important town of Rhodes, in the so-called Church of St. George Christos covered. Late 12th century frescoes have been revealed. As you can see, not very much remains, but we have church fathers, female saints, and you can probably detect the linear style of the late 12th century. This is probably what the frescoes in Rhodes town would have looked like, perhaps of a little better quality. This is just to give you an idea. What I call the Age of Turbulence follows from 1204 to 1309. 1204 was a seminal date in the history of the Byzantine Empire. Constantinople was taken over by the Crusades, the Fourth Crusades. The empire was split. This is a kind of a controversial map because in green it says possessions of the Republic of Venice with year of acquisition. Rhodes was not, although technically with the Partitio Romani was given over to Venice, it was a kind of an independent state under the loose control of the Byzantine Empire up till 1216. This is why I call it the Age of Turbulence. Again, despite the turbulence, the artistic activity continues in town, and we assume, and of course the best example we have is again from the monastery of Thari. You remember the previous frescoes that I showed were from the late 12th century. This is of the first half of the 13th, much better quality, and which shows this is a detail of an angel of the Ascension. Much better quality, and again showing that the network with Constantinople and the connections are still there. At the end of the 13th century, a small chapel, all the churches in the countryside of Rhodes are really very humble and architecturally speaking, but quite important as far as the paintings go. This is the Church of St. George Vardas in Apologia, dated 1289 to 1290. An unassuming building with frescoes, but we are lucky enough to have a dedicatory inscription mentioning an exact date. And here I show you a detail. It says that the church was built by the foundation, the church of this holy martyr George was built from the foundations in the during the reign of Andronikos Palaiologos in 6798. I don't have the proper fonts in my computer to give you the Byzantine characters. In the third indiction, which corresponds with 1289 to 90. And this church has been, the frescoes of this church have been studied in a monograph by Konstantia Kefala, who has studied the frescoes and the artistic output of Rhodes during the 13th century. It is a very arduous task. As you can see, the church is fully covered with frescoes, but the problem with all these small buildings in the countryside, no matter how many times they are restored, they suffer mostly from damp, and it's quite difficult to take care of all of them. This little church is covered in frescoes, as you can see. You have the dodecaton on the top, and then saints, female and male saints in the middle zone, and also in the lower zone. Okay, a detail of from the Ascension and a close-up. One could characterize this parochial art, but also it is reminiscent of the so-called Crusader art, which attributes the characteristic, the trademark of it, are these rolling, so-called rolling eyes. Although Cyprus and the opposite coast, or Cyprus and Italy, the connections between these three realms have been studied, Rhodes still remains a bit off the beaten track. The saints decorating the church vary from military ones like Saint Nikitas to agricultural ones, Saint Tryphon, healing ones, Saint Panteleimon, and of course the Virgin and other female saints as well. Moving on to the age of the Hospitallers, who arrived in 1309 from the Holy Land via Cyprus. They stayed on the island for 213 years, and 19 Grandmasters ruled the island. We can see at the end what was the take on their rule. So I have divided the 213 years of hospitallary rule roughly in centuries. Of course, they're not full centuries, so it's like, they are divided in three: the Age of Conquest, 1309 to 1396, the Age of Symbiosis, 1396 to 1480, and the Age of Rapprochement, 1480 to 1522. And let me explain these titles. So, the Age of Conquest, 1309 to 1396. This is the very famous and beautiful church called Our Lady of the Castle, Panagia του Κάστρου. It's at the bottom of the Hippodon Street, if you've been to Rhodes, which leads up to the Palace of the Grand Master. The initial building dates from the 11th century, so it's part Byzantine. But what happened was that when the Hospitallers came, the second Grand Master, Elion de Villeneuve, during his rule, the Panagia του Κάστρου, the Byzantine, they took over the Byzantine church to turn it into the Latin cathedral. So this was the Byzantine structure of the church. It was a beautiful edifice, quite imposing, very close to what would become their the palace of their Grand Master. So what do? They knock off the roof and they turn it into a Gothic cathedral, the Sancta Maria Castelli di Rodi, with these pointed up arches. It's very clear, even inside, you can see inside the lines that this happened. This is the Byzantine edifice, and this is the Gothic remain. And this one here too. Easy, clear appropriation, save of money and funds, and you have a beautiful Latin cathedral. Today it's used as a small Byzantine museum, but it's devoid of frescoes. Again, at the bottom you can see the round arches of the Byzantine edifice, and up above the Gothic arches. What happens inside? Inside there are frescoes of the mid-14th century. Some people have argued that they are so elegant and westernized that painters from the West should have been at Rhodes, present at Rhodes, especially Sienese. What you can see here, and we'll look at details, is Saint Lucy, Santa Lucia, and this is the Virgin. You can detect probably the difference in color, more light and pale colors in this almost purely Western image. This one, darker colors, more Byzantine, but of course the movement, the three-quarter movement and the pointed eyes make this image not purely Byzantine. Take a look at St. Lucy, beautiful, almost Jotesque, and you can see her golden hair, the crown. No Byzantine saint would have this kind of crown, and the halo with the not painted halo with incised lines. And it even the painter has taken has even depicted the eyes of St. Lucy in her hand, holding her eyes in her hand, because according to her martyrdom, her eyes were taken off. Second important building that we don't have, it's not standing at the moment, is the conventual church of St. John of Colacium, again built in the first half of the 14th century. If you know Rhodes, this is the palace of the Grand Master that took over the Acropolis of the Byzantine fortification. Remember the red outline that we saw earlier. And this is where it would have stood if an earthquake and an explosion, it was an explosion in 1830 blew it off. At its place stands the school for the Muslim community of Rhodes, where my father used to teach, but it now it's out of use and it's being repaired. Because of its reparations, the archaeologists have had the chance to make excavations, rescue excavations, and a lot more material and information have come up. We don't know we know what it looked like thanks to drawings of travelers. This one is by Rhodes, a Flemish traveler who came to Rhodes and drew pictures from a lot of monuments. So we have a replica in the modern town. This is the modern day Church of the Annunciation of the Virgin, the biggest, the most sumptuous, where all the big events take place. So this stands at the top end of Hippoton Street, the conventual church, and at the bottom, the Latin cathedral. So the Hospitallers start to establish themselves slowly in the old town of Rhodes. Mind you, we still don't have the fortifications that stand today. They're still working within the old Byzantine fortifications. This is what the inside looks like, and this is exactly what the modern church looks like. And it used to be the place where the grandmasters were buried. This is the tomb of the last grandmaster of Rhodes, Villiers de l'Isle Adam. He wasn't buried on Rhodes, but Malta. But this is just to give you an example of what it would have looked like. We have very few sarcophagi of the grandmasters, one in Rhodes and two, if I'm not mistaken, at the Cluny Museum. But there are many more of several other knights and members of the order. Another building, purely Gothic building within the old town. It's the Virgin of the early 14th century, the Virgin of the Burgu, Panagiotou Burgu, completely Gothic structure. It can be compared to other Gothic structures of in Latin Greece, like St. Sophia and Andravida, for example, with the pointed arches. And mind you, at this time, apart from the religious buildings, the Hospitallers were building secular ones as well, like their palace and other secular buildings. So they're taking over the old town and making the presence felt. What about the Greek-speaking Orthodox population? This is the Church of St. Phanourios, a church in the old town of Rhodes. Badly, really badly preserved and completely blackened from the light of the candles. But St. Phanourios is, if you can have a look down here, St. Phanourios is a very popular saint in Rhodes, although non-existent, as Maria Vasilaki proved. But his feast in late August, August 27th, if I'm not mistaken, is a very, very big feast. The icon goes out in litany, people follow. So this building, it did exist from the 11th century. And it has several phases, fresco phases. One of the cleaner ones is one with this fresco of donors and other deceased people, dated 1335 to 1336. Oops, no. A clearer view here with another deceased person next to it with the appropriate inscriptions, supplication of the servant of God, and in this white paradisical landscape. From what can be seen, this is the a fresco in the apse. This is quite high quality, which means that some gifted painters with some connections did exist in Rhodes. And it's very interesting that the 14th century, although the middle of the 14th century, although it was the age of conquest, Byzantine art continued to flourish. And we can see that also from very high quality bilateral icons that are kept in Rhodes. And it's very interesting that the same phenomenon is attested in Cyprus, on Cyprus as well. Going out to the villages again, this is Saint Habakkuk in Paradisi, Villanova. The old name of the village is Villanova, supposedly taken by named after Elion de Villeneuve, the second Grand Master, but this is nothing to be, that's something that can be proved. This village is very close to Rhodes town. It's where the airport is, and you can see the Turkey on the Turkish coast on the opposite side. And it was a very, how shall we say, it was a kind of, it became later, but it started in the 14th century, a place, a very fertile place, still is, where the grandmasters had mansions, and it served somehow like a place to have your summer house. So what happens is this church of St. Habakkuk, when you go inside, normal dodecarton, a detail of the baptism of Christ, and here is a quite close-up detail. And you would have thought that this is a Byzantine foundation. But what happens when you go to the apse? It's very interesting what happens when you go inside the apse. Here you have the Virgin holding her hand on top of the head of a person that's not very clear here. It's quite destroyed, but on the opposite side, the person kneeling is clearly a member of the Order of the Knights, the Hospitaller Knights. You can see the white cross here. It's obvious that he is somehow involved, but the artist that he chose is not a Westerner, probably someone trained in Byzantine art, and he was told to do what the donor liked. So here he is, the Tronum Gratiae, the Gnadesstuhl, the purely Western version of God above the two donors. Absolutely Western iconography rendered in Byzantine style. Going to the other side of the island, again in the countryside, we saw previously in St. Habakkuk a Western donor, a knight hospitaller, employing probably a Byzantine artist for a foundation, a chapel that he founded. On the other side, and I'm sorry I don't have more photographs from this church, but they are my computer in the office, and this pandemic times is not nice to go. On the other side, roughly at the same time, St. Theodore's in Archangelos, a big village in the middle of the island, was built. Again, we have the dedicatory inscription, was built and decorated in honor of the great martyrs Theodore Tyron and Theodore Stratilatis by the expense of Konstantinos Mavdis. Here is the donor, and his wife Irene, this Atomisis, I'll come back to that, and their children for the savior of their souls, and on 21st of December 1372. We're very lucky to have this portrait with the dedicatory inscription, and we can see that this couple must have been of some standing. You can barely detect the beautiful earrings of Irene. You can see Constantine bearded, but with the white coif, a characteristically Western item of dressing. And coming to the title Atumisis, when I was doing my MPhil with Cyril Mango, he suggested that Atumisa might come from Hatun, the term Hatun, meaning in Turkish lady, and who am I to disagree with Cyril Mango? So this is a couple of some standing that built and decorated this church at the end of the 14th century, the age of the conquest. We come to the age of what I call the age of symbiosis, 1396 to 1480. And this is a rather later map, but it gives you an idea of how things have progressed. The Byzantine Empire is a ghost of itself. The Ottomans have taken over in the Balkans, in the Aegean Minor and the Balkans. The green colored islands, Crete and Euboea, are under Venetian rule. And the blue, this is the Knights of St. John. So the Hospitalis feel Cyprus is still a Lusignan kingdom, but Cyprus and the Dodecanese are the last Christian strongholds along the Asia Minor shores. So the Hospitallers are very eager to fortify the city against possible invasions. So this is what the final look of the city of the old, what we call now the old town of Rhodes, looks like. They will build between 1457 and 1465. They cover 420 acres. They have a triple line of fortification. And here you can see, it's not, of course, an actual rendering, but if you remember, this is the famous Hipoton Street, the Street of the Knights, which actually follows one of the very ancient routes of the Hellenistic city. And at the bottom was the Our Lady of the Virgin. That was Our Lady of the Virgin, Our Lady of the Castle. The church that was turned into a Latin cathedral. And up here was the Palace of the Grand Master with the conventual church. This is a better view. Again, the Street of the Knights. This is one of the many views that came later from travelers. And this is an aerial view of what it looks today. It's pretty impressive, and it since 1988, it's a UNESCO heritage site. The age of symbiosis, one of the very first signs we have of the age of symbiosis, and probably and a very telling one, is a sign on the walls. It's on the, as you go inside this entrance, you will find it here. It's a bilingual inscription in medieval Latin and Greek by Manuel Kundis, who worked on the fortifications of Rhodes. Here is the Latin text and the Greek one. It was built from the foundations, this Ticheon, this fortification, the wall of Rhodes, by the Archimastoras, the chief no, carpenter, he's not a carpenter, he's chief builder, let's say, Manuel Kundi. It's although he must have worked on the walls, it's interesting to know who worked on the buildings, or whether he worked on the sculptures of the that decorated several parts of the fortifications, not only coat of arms, but sometimes they have sculptural figures as well. It seems that in Rhodes town, the Hospitallers, the Grandmasters, and were keener on rebuilding, building and reinforcing the town, the fortifications. So though we don't have much evidence of new religious building in town, but in the countryside, there are still some remnants of frescoes. This is in St. Nicholas. Sorry, I forgot to write where it comes from. This is the Church of St. Nicholas in Maritsa, a dedicatory inscription that makes clear that it was a communal donation to Laou του χωριού, so built by a communal donation of the villagers, by the villagers. Unfortunately, it's very blackened today, rather parochial quality painting, very blackened. Again in Lindos, where Lindos was since antiquity and later on a very important place, the Church of St. George Pachimachiotis has a very long inscription, dedicatory inscription, clearly dated with the names of the donor. Again, it reads that this church of the great martyr St. George Pachimachiotis, I'm not sure what that means, it was built by the expense of the priest Katasambas and his wife Kali, Kira Kali, Lady Kali, the magister, and their children in 1394-95. Very interesting, a very interesting closing with a very interesting reference to the Patriarch of Constantinople and Ecumenical Patriarch of New Rome, Antonius. This has been interpreted as, again, a sign of resistance against the Hospitallers. Although I'm not very sure about that. It is traditional whenever we see the name of a Byzantine emperor in Latin ruled areas to interpret it as such. But my doubt comes from the fact that this is the end of the first century of the Hospitaller rule, and there's no mention of an emperor, just a patriarch, because this was done by a priest. And unfortunately, it's either or. Either we have a lot of, full iconographic program, lots of frescoes without a clear dating, or we have a long inscription, dedicatory inscription with the names, but not enough frescoes. Here, we have a very high quality fresco of Church Father in the apse within of the church. We come to the final point, the final period in hospitallary rule, what I call the Age of Rapprochement, 1480 to 1582. And this rapprochement came quite forcibly and violently because of the first siege of Rhodes by the Ottomans in 1480. You can see various versions of the siege. It was really bloody one, and the Ottomans camped outside all over, and it was quite a bloody battle, which the locals won, and they were very happy about it. And all this detailed information we have from a very beautiful manuscript by Guillaume Caorsin, the Vice Chancellor of the Hospitaller Order, executed in 1483 to 84 in Paris. It's still in Paris. We don't know if it ever reached Rhodes, but we have, it provides us with beautiful, colorful details of everyday life in Rhodes at the time of the mid 15th century. This is the Grand Master of the time, Pierre d'Aubusson, and this is Guillaume de Caorsin. And this is an incident or in 1481, people praying because of an earthquake. You can see the people outside crying because of the earthquake. So Rhodes in 1480 1481 had a siege that almost stopped the hospitallary rule and an earthquake. So this made the locals and the rulers come together. Pierre d'Aubusson, the Grand Master, built at the site of the most not at the site of the bloodiest part of the siege, a church, the Virgin of the Victory, to commemorate the victory. It doesn't stand today. And just next to it, the Greeks built the Church of Saint Panteleimon, because the siege ended on his named day, July the 26th. No, 27th, if I'm not mistaken. So two churches, a Latin rite and a Christian rite, an Orthodox rite, one next to each other, and that's a very first sign of rapprochement. D'Aubusson, the Grand Master, then became patron or funded or gave some money to churches outside the city of Rhodes. The Church of Panagia at Philerimos is one, and the Church of the Virgin at Lindos. You can see his coat of arms, and we also have a testimony on an icon, and also mentions in documents of him giving money to various Orthodox churches on the island. The church of the rapprochement is also seen from the other side. The Church of Saint Spiridon in the old town, in the crypt, here you go down the crypt. This is an older church, but in the crypt, there is a beautiful fresco of the crucifixion with two kneeling donors, Georgios and, having the coiffure of, it doesn't look very Byzantine. The younger one is more modern and more westernized, and the clothes as well, but you can see that they have adopted the Western a habit of coat of arms. And this is another coat of arms by a Greek. You can see the Greek inscription here in 1513. So you see not only the Latins approaching the Greeks, donating money to their churches, but also the Greeks adopting the mores of the rulers. One of the most fascinating churches, and obviously a funeral one, is next to the Virgin of Philerimos. It's called St. George Christos, that means covered. And although it's a very unassuming building, the decoration, badly damaged again, is quite fascinating. This is obviously a Latin foundation. You can see here the Christ with a bare chest, and it has on the upper zones, on the one hand, the scenes from the life of the Virgin. Here is the Virgin going to church. Here is the Virgin fed by the angel. And on the other side, the scenes from the Passion of Christ, unusual ones for a Byzantine church, but it's not a Byzantine church. This is the whipping of Christ, and this is the mocking of Christ. And most interesting, at the lower zone, you have a series of knights of the order under the protection of Archangel Gabriel or Michael, Saint Catherine, and more individuals, not very not very clear, unfortunately. Oh, oops, another one. I just couldn't resist. Look at this beautiful composition with a crucifixion on the one side, two Latin donors with the coat of arms, a beautiful Latin lady with a low cut and heavily decorated dress. I would say it's obvious that and I think this is identified with St. Magdalene, a Latin foundation, probably of burial character. And we have in the countryside of Rhodes, this church of St. Nicholas Ifundukli, dated at the end of the 15th century. A beautiful building, a tetraconch, a four-sided one, a very rare architectural type, only two other in Rhodes and very few in the rest of Greece. This was built by a couple, we'll see details. Their father and mother holds the model of the church in memory of their three deceased children. You can see them here, and I'll show you details. Here is the couple and the model of the church. And here are the three children who probably died during a pandemic that struck Rhodes in the late 15th century. To lose all three children of yours was a big blow, and the mourning couple dedicated this church in their memory. Unfortunately, although the iconographic program is still there, it has been heavily restored and repainted by the Italians, so it's not safe grounds to say anything about the style or the iconography, although a young Rhodian scholar, Nikos Mastrochristos, has recently completed his thesis on this, which will soon be published. I'll finish with two more monuments, the last two monuments of what the pioneer and founding father of research on the painting of Rhodes, the former director of antiquities of Rhodes, Elias Kollias, has termed the eclectic trend a hybrid, a combination of Byzantine and Western elements in the same monument. He was the first to study the buildings and the artistic output of the late 15th, early 16th century and coined this term. This is the Church of St. Nicholas in Trianda. Trianda is very close to Rhodes town. And I'm stressing this because one can assume that, well, whoever founded this church and decorated it was in close contact with or saw Western images, but we'll come to that later. Unfortunately, not much survives. It's this series of scenes, Christological scenes, but what survives is very important. You have some of the miracles of Christ. Here, the raising of the daughter of Jairus, the washing of the feet. But these are the more interesting composition. This is the mocking of Christ, and the details. This is far away from any Byzantine iconography, both iconography and style, heavily populated with people moving, dancing, mocking. And if we close up to the details, you can see this man bearing his butt against Christ, a very daring posture, and these children dancing and mocking Christ. And again, you see Christ driven to the cross with the soldiers following him, with modern Western, contemporary Western armor. Again, the details are very impressive, I think. But you have something similar at the end, at the countryside of Rhodes, Panagia Parmenotissa in Psynthos, an echo of all this westernized emotion and passion in the scenes. Again, you see the arrest of Christ with all the Western-looking soldiers inside. See how badly damaged from damp this church is, with very high-quality frescoes. And here is, I can't remember if it's the mocking of Christ. No, I'm not sure what this is. Oh yes, it is the mocking of Christ. Detail of several people making fun of Christ. This is not part of the traditional Byzantine iconography, and this is found in an otherwise purely Byzantine church. You can see the details in people. The crucifixion and the lamentation. Oops, sorry, the lamentation I would like to have a close-up, but I didn't put it, which is much, you can see how the Virgin is closer to Christ, holding his head with her hands, and John closing up to him, much more emotion depicted, and also the coloring. The coloring is different, light pinks, and also some hint of perspective. What were the Hospitallers? Were they good or bad for Rhodes? Or I am reminded of a monument in Rhodes in front of the school for teachers. There used to be a 2-year training school for teachers. And in front of this monument, it said, "To the unknown teacher and priest of Rhodes, who resisted the foreign occupation 1309 to 1947. So this was put up after after Rhodes became Greek again in 1947. After the hospitals came the Ottoman Turks and then the Italians. So whoever put it up then, it considered all foreigners as ruling foreign rulers as bad. But we have a monument here. This is one of the typical signs you see when you go around. And this is what the Byzantine city, the extent of the Byzantine city. This is the medieval city. You see how much it expanded. And the buildings signed in red are the Byzantine ones. And the rest, the brown ones, are all buildings of the Hospitaller period. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions, queries, something you don't understand. I'm sure it was a very quick overview, but I hope you have an idea and a feeling.
Thank you very much, Ioanna. Wonderful, beautiful tour of Rhodes across the centuries. Make us willing to go there as soon as possible.
Oh, yes, yes.
And thank you very much to all the participants. We already have at least three questions.
Okay.
Two are coming from Scott Kennedy. Do we know anything about the decoration of the Master's Palace? The first one. And the second one? Sorry, Ioanna. And the second one, well, what did the Ottomans do to the burial church of the Grand Masters?
Do we know anything about the decoration? Not much, because because it's all lost. What stands today was redone by the Italians. It's beautiful and very impressive, very imposing. We only know things from travelers' accounts. We know there was a chapel of St. Catherine, obviously with frescoes of St. Catherine, and with some relics there. I'm not sure if it's the hand of St. Catherine, definitely the hand of St. John was somewhere. And there were also tapestries. One specific one that we know of was one of the grandmasters, de Dieudonné de Gozon, slaying a dragon that was in Rhodes town. And sorry, what was the second one?
The second question was to what did the Ottomans do to the burial church of the Grand Master?
The burial church, you mean the St. John? Good question. The Latin cathedral was turned into a mosque. The burial church, I have to check it up. I have to look it up. I can't remember at this point, but chat, where's my chat? I'll share my I can't with chat, no. I'll share my email, and please use that to email me with questions. Some of the a few of them, well, some of them were not sarcophagi. Not all of them were sarcophagi. So they were on the floor. So there was nothing they could do with that. Oh, did you get my email? Yes. So there was nothing they could do with that. Two of the tombs were found outside the walls, so they must have moved a few of them, the sarcophagi one. And the two that are in Cluny, I don't know how they got there, but the hospitals, when they left, they took quite a few things with them. I wonder, that would be too heavy to carry. They took icons, but I'm not sure. That's a very good question. I'll get back to that.
Thank you, Ioanna, and thank you, Scott, for the questions. Eylül Chetimbash wanted to ask you the question directly, so in person. Eylül, are you there? Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to ask if you have any interior photos from the Upper Old Town, from the Church of St. Catherine, because whenever I go there, I could never inside because it's always been closed, and I have only these exterior photos, and it seems very awkward in my thesis.
You mean the St. Catherine, not in the Poton Street, the one, sorry, which one do you mean? I
mean in the upper part of the Old Town, when we go straight ahead inside the city. Not the Hospice of St. Catherine, but inside the city. Yeah.
The one that Theodoros Archondopoulos has written his thesis on. Is that the one you mean?
Yeah, the 14th century one.
Yes, the 14th century one. Okay, yes, I have pictures, photographs from that, but that was very early in 1992 when I was doing my MPhil thesis. I can't remember how I went there. I took the photographs. Well, you're probably too young to remember photographs when they're printed and in analog form and slides. Ever since, I haven't been able. I have been given the key from the F08, and every time we go there, the guard with the key, he cannot unlock the door. And I've heard this from others as well. So nobody has been there recently. But you said you were working on this?
No, it's only one part of my thesis of Cult of St. Catherine in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Okay.
But I can send you an email if you also have the
okay. Yes. I can send you what I have, but the F48, I'm sure, yes. The F48 is due to the legacy of the late Ilias Kollias, who was a very open-minded, very giving person. They have a digital collection. So if you write to them, I can put you in touch with some of them. If you write them for, you ask them for some pictures, they will probably send them to you. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, do write to me and we'll get in touch.
Super. Then we have another question coming from Sebnen Sebnenoja. Thank you very much. I mean, there is a lot of people who are thanking you. I think the tourist Rhodes is increasing, is going to increase dramatically, including among the others, because they are sending you the best wishes, Constantino Raptis, Brian Giger, Nikos Mastrokistos, and so on and so forth. So I just gave you some names because they wanted to also say hi to you. So getting to the question, although Sebnenoja was disconnected several times, and they may have mentioned that, she was wondering about the mendicant order's existence in Rhodes and their relationship with the Hospitaller Knights. And thanks again, she said.
Yes, of course, Shebnem. Yes. The mendicants are everywhere, but you can't find them on Rhodes. They are not as obvious as to all the other places. There is a mention that there was a church of the Franciscans, but of course in the Old Town, but it may have been knocked down. We don't have any other mention of the mendicants. I'm looking and looking and looking for them. There is a slight 2 lines in the documents of the of the Hospitallers, but Prodromos Papanikolaou has done a very good presentation in the Mendicant Orders Conference in Nafplion, where he managed to trace some iconographic echoes of the mendicants, but the mendicants are not, you know, obviously seen as in any other places. I would like to see them more too.
Thank you, Ioanna. Thank you, Sevnenojan. Nina Chichinazde, Apologia St. George inscription says that it was painted in 2 years. Is it? It was the 12th century painting. This is the yes, there is. It was the 12th century painting of the Virgin Glycophilusa. May I ask about this inscription? So 2 questions, I think. Nina, am I right? Sorry. Okay.
Yes,
So the first one is about the Apologia St. George. Was it painted in 2 years? And the second one is about the inscription on the Virgin Glycophilusa.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about the misunderstanding. I mean, I missed.
No, it's my fault.
No, I insist, it's my fault.
Sorry, the first is the dating. It's not that.
No,
no.
The inscription says it was painted in 2 years. Is it true?
You mentioned 2 dates.
It's not 2 dates. It's 89-90. It's because of the indiction or something.
I
like
see.
That.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just wonder how long it takes to. So it's interesting information. It seems like interesting indication of duration of how long it takes painting.
How long it takes? Yes. No, it's not. It doesn't.
Okay, I understand.
It doesn't. It doesn't indicate the length.
Yeah.
But there is a church nearby. They couldn't have probably. We don't know, like the Western painters, like they had giornates and everything. But these churches are very small. They could be done in no time. I don't know. I'm not an artist myself, but it can't have taken more than, I don't know, a month or 2, maximum 2. What's very interesting is that you see some movement of the same artists, painters, whatever. So next to, in the same village of Apologia, Konstantia Kefala, who has studied the 13th century on Rhodes, has detected the work of the same painter, the same artist in another very small church. Because in the scene of the baptism, they have the painter's kind of his trademark, the dragon, the heads of dragons coming out of the water, and this trademark appears.
Can you give me the name of the?
Yes, of course. Yes, I will write it. And also we have the archaeological service. The people in the archaeological service were they have an excellent library to work with the legacy of the Italians. They're doing an excellent job with studying the monuments, and they have traced, for example, in the 15th century, they have traced the same group of artists, painters in a church in the south of Rhodes, and the same group of painters on the island of Nisiros, which is off Kos. So people, groups of workshops were moving around.
Yeah, that's extremely important.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Another question since you mentioned Cyprus many times. Hi, Maria Parani. Hi, Maria. Do we know anything about the formation of the workshop working in these churches? Were they local, or can we trace their work elsewhere, like other islands on the Dodecanese?
Yes, yes, we can. I mean, clearly, as I said, there was one in Rhodes and another one in Nisiros. A lot of these are still remained unpublished, so it's difficult to know, to make comparisons. I'm writing.
And okay.
Rhodes, Constantia Kefalla. And her thesis, if you Google that, I can't remember the title, but it's online. And it's digitally published, so you can download it.
Thank you.
Wait, because you sent it to me. I have to read. No, it's fine. I send it. I forward it to everyone. Last question. Apart from Alido Rukaramanu is asking you some advice on how you can get in the indoor sites. It's more advice, so most probably he's going to write to you in person later on. And apparently
the question, the answer, the easy answer is you can easily get into the churches outside the town. They're out in the countryside, they're open. It's just sometimes it's more difficult to find them or not. In town, you have to get in touch with the director of antiquities, and they're very good at responding.
Thank you. And apart from the fact that we have someone also following us from the island of Rhodes itself, Evelyn Mineur, Anthi Andro is asking about the fresco of the Church of St. Habakkuk. One of the two donors seemed to have a tonsure. Could that be the case?
I'm not sure, because it's so badly deteriorated. And when I first went in the 1990s, the early 1990s, I could see both donors. And going back now, I can, with very great difficulty, one to the left, but I'm relying on my old photographs and see that. So I'm not sure about the tonsure. I promise to look it more carefully, enlarge it on my computer and see.
Brilliant. Maria Thomas, the donor portraits you shared with us, are they mostly a picture of male patrons, hospitalers? And when do we see women? Are they mostly in company of male relatives?
That's a very good question. Well, when we see male patrons, they're not most of the time the ones that we see. They're extant. They're not hospitalers. Of course, there were hospitaller patrons, but they would have been in Rhodes town, and the churches, the frescoes have been destroyed. So we have very few outside, like in St. Habakkuk. When we see Orthodox ones, yes, of course, the women would always be accompanied by a man. The only case that they were on their own is if they were a nun. Nuns, and there is one case of a nun that I didn't show. So yes, always women accompanied by men.
Thank you. And last question, as far as I can see, from Veronica Calas. Hi, Veronica. I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but anything about the role of engravings and woodcuts in the new unusual westernizing iconography, as it said for similar mixed iconography on Crete? The scene with the mocking of Christ was fascinating. So I think the question is anything about the role of engravings and woodcuts in the unusual westernizing iconography, like in Crete?
Not like in Crete, not the same direct thing. It is a good question, where and how did they see that? How did they come to that? We don't have any direct connections with woodcuts and things, but of course, Rhodes became, after the hospitallary takeover, it became a truly international port with merchants coming along, a sugar refinery, and we know how important and precious sugar was. Pilgrimage, a stop over to the Holy Land. Every other pilgrim stopped in Rhodes and then Cyprus. So things coming and going. That's how probably it came. And of course, the easiest thing would be manuscripts, I imagine, but we don't have anything anything concrete.
Thanks. Further question from Geoffrey Mayer Fernandez. Hi, Geoffrey. Could you talk about the hypothesis concerning the identity of the painter or the workshop that decorated the Church of St. George Christos, local or foreigner, Latin or Greek?
Oh, Geoffroy is a very good connoisseur of Rhodes.
Call it Geoffrey. Sorry, Geoffroy. My bad.
No. So it looks very Western to me. It looks very Latin. Nothing, especially the donor portraits. They look very, very Latin to me. The problem is that we lack so much material. So much has been destroyed. There must have been, as I said, Western frescoes like the ones we have in Panagiotou Castru, the St. Lucy one, tapestries going back and forth, woodcuts, of course. And we lack all this material to make any concrete assumptions. As far as I can tell, the impression is Latin, foreigner, perhaps with the collaboration of the local for some of the scenes in the upper zone.
Thank you. I think that was the last question, Ioanna. I mean, yes, also Geoffroy is thanking it. So if there are no other questions, I would like you to join me, and join Sergianuja as well. And ideally a round of applause for this wonderful talk and for Ioanna. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It was wonderful.